Is it gonna be with video slide?
Hello and welcome to Disha in Australia and welcome back to our YouTube channel Diva Planet. Today I have a very special guest with me. So I meet Irina and she is also a student at NU. So would you like to give your little introduction to the viewers?
Hello, my name is Irina. I am a PhD student here at the ANU. I study in CAS and my discipline is anthropology, that is cultural anthropology.
That's really interesting. Today we'll be talking about her experiences as an international student. So she has been here for a long time, and me being comparatively new. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. Stay tuned. Let's just get live to Voroni and we'll back. We'll be back. You can wear your headphones. We have to shoot one promotional content for Instagram. Can you come a little closer? Hello, namaste, and welcome back to Disha in Australia. And we are coming after a long time. How have your midsummer break been? So, today at Disha in Australia, we have Irina, and we are discussing a very interesting topic. So, she's from Siberia, and we are talking about her international journey. She's been here for a long time. Irina, would you like to give a little bit introduction about yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Irina. I am a PhD student here at ANU in CAS and my discipline is cultural anthropology.
That's wonderful. Today we'll be talking about her research in Indigenous culture and also about her international student background and what are the cultural shocks that she experienced. So stay tuned and tune into the Shine Australia right now. We are also live on YouTube and we hope to see you all. Is this good? Can you add me on Instagram so that I post it?
So
Sorry?
today at the Shine Australia we have Irina and we are discussing a very interesting topic. So she's from Siberia and we are talking about her international journey. She's been here for a long time. You can
Sorry, that was
a little bit introduction
the
about
first
yourself.
one. Yep.
Hi everyone, my name is Irina.
What's your ID?
It's
Like this.
my discipline is cultural anthropology. That's wonderful. Today we'll be talking about her
Lower
research
dash.
in
This
indigenous
one?
culture
Yes.
and also about her international student background and what are the cultural shocks that she experienced. So stay tuned and tune into the Shine Australia right now. We are also live on YouTube and we hope to see you all. Hello, namaste and welcome.
You can say hi into your language too. We try because I say hi in my language, namaste. So you can start with you. That's like the introduction that we usually do.
Okay.
Yeah. What's hi in your language?
Well, I speak Russian language, so it's going to be привет.
In Australia, and we are coming after a long time. How have your midsummer break been? So today at the Shine Australia, we have Irina, and we are discussing a very interesting topic. So she's from Siberia, and we are talking about her international journey. She's been okay. Yep. Now we're live. Hello, namaste, and welcome back to Disha in Australia. How have you guys been? Your host has turned 19, and I'm no longer 18 in the midsem break. I turned 19. Um, how was your midsem break?
Well, as a PhD student, unfortunately, we don't have breaks or holidays. We are constantly working, constantly occupying libraries and offices. So, yeah.
So, today at Disha in Australia, I got you guys a very interesting guest. Her name is Irina, and would you like to introduce yourself?
So, привет. In my Russian language, it means hello. My name is Irina, and so yes, I am an international student, and I am originally from Siberia, from a city called Yakutsk. So, and yes, I have arrived to Australia for the first time in 2014 to do my Bachelor of Art degree back in Adelaide, and so I found myself here doing PhD
That's so
years later.
interesting.
Yeah.
She started with bachelor's in 2014 and now it's 2023, almost 10 years, and she's doing her PhD in Australia. She's been here for the long, long time. Oh my god. Wow, that's truly impressive. How has your experience been in Australia?
Well, as I often say, first coming to Australia felt like I have arrived to a different planet. I honestly, everything was different. Nature, sky, even sun, obviously, very hot here. So someone
True,
from Siberia can testify to that.
true.
Yes, and of course, just pretty much everything. So I did have a big cultural shock initially, but yeah, as you mentioned, years has passed, and I feel mm, very welcomed here. Let's say that.
That's so amazing. And it feels so nice that you feel welcome here because, as moving from our own home countries and, starting a life from scratch in a completely different country, it's like a very big transition. And the best thing that we can, ask for, and it's like really small, it's just that wherever you go, you feel that you are accepted and respected there, and that's what an international student primarily demands for, right? So as you mentioned about your PhD, so what are you studying in your PhD?
So, as I myself am an indigenous person from Siberia, coming from an indigenous nation called Yakut people, I always felt connected to other Indigenous people and nations and cultures around the world. And so when I arrived to Australia, I was astonished by the amazingly beautiful culture of the First Nations here. And I wanted to do it justice, and I really wanted um, to learn more about it, to understand it, and to see how us Indigenous people thrive in different parts of the world. And so I arrived at this a research project that I'm working now on is so I'm looking at contemporary Indigenous arts in the spheres of media and storytelling. And so my take on this topic is that culture is a thing that evolves, which changes together with us. And as we adapt for the environment around us to the life and new things that arrive in our life experience, we bring culture with us and we never leave it anywhere. And so this is what I'm researching.
That's wonderful. Talking about culture, we come from different cultural backgrounds. So I'm from India and you're from Siberia. And obviously, the culture in Australia is different from our countries. And how has it, impacted you as a person?
Oh, that's a great question. I heard people say that when you speak a different language, you adopt a different personality, and I
Mhm.
can definitely say that that's the thing. So language, just starting from language, right? So language is a set of culture just itself. So it carries its folk wisdom, idioms, understanding, metaphors, right? And this all really shapes our experience. And as I lived here, as you mentioned, quite a long time, so I started to change as well. And I have been told that I have a different personality in English than I do in Russian, in my own language. Um, so, yeah, when I first arrived here, I had such little knowledge about Australia and what this place is, to the extent that I'm no joking. I thought that the fact that us, like the southern hemisphere has different seasons than the northern hemisphere is a
Ah.
joke. I seriously thought so. It's so embarrassing. But yeah, as I figured out, that was not a joke. That's a real thing.
Mm.
And so, I mean, that should be a great example of how little I knew about
Yeah,
where I'm going.
true.
In, so lots of people come to Australia following their family members,
Mm.
but not me. So I just came here all by myself. But I have built a great community around me now, and I have amazing friends who are supporting me and great people around as well. So I would say that Australia is an incredibly welcoming place. It is different and it is unique in so many ways as well. Because in my life, I have traveled quite a lot. I've been to UK, I've been to the US, I traveled around Europe quite extensively as well. But Australia is unique. It's one in the world.
True. So, as you mentioned about like people come following their friends or family, even I came here alone and I started my life from scratch. So, the last time I saw my parents was at Delhi airport and they left me there. And since then, it's just been a beautiful journey. And I feel it just makes you feel so confident about yourself because I have the power to start the life by myself and with no one knew me, I knew no one, and it just started with me getting out of my comfort zone and breaking the shells and breaking the limits that were stopping me, and those limits were mostly set by yourself. There are times when you'll see that if you think you can't do something, it's your brain telling you to not do that. Once you overcome that no matter what other people say, no matter what my brain says, let's do what my heart says. I think you are the strongest person, and it has just made me so strong. And from Sydney Airport, I think it's just been me with myself, no matter how many friends I've made. But I'd always be proud of the 18-year-old girl who took the flight from Delhi to Sydney and built a life on her own.
Absolutely. I can relate to everything you said so
Mm.
well because that really truly reminds me of my first years here in Australia. I remember coming here alone as well. I was so scared. I arrived in the middle of the night
Oh.
in the airport in Adelaide, and it was a rainy night as well. It was cold because it was autumn, and I just, you know, I was so disoriented. I didn't know, yeah, what to expect, and so just to to understand people was also very difficult at
Mm.
first because I never had experience listening to the Australian
True,
accent
true, true.
speech, right? Because in the media you can see a lot of TV shows made in America, right? And so you can see UK TV shows, but I never really heard the live Australian
Yeah.
speech, and it took me several months to actually start understanding it, and I felt so so self-conscious about that.
Mm.
But that it's exactly, it's about showing up and making an effort. It's about speaking up as well.
Yeah.
I remember feeling very embarrassed about my own English skills as well,
Mm.
because I felt that my accent was very strong. I felt that maybe I'm making some mistakes while speaking, and so building up the confidence was a very big step. And I think it is a big step for many international students who arrive first
Yeah.
to Australia and to any foreign country, really.
True. Talking about like language differences, so English is not a first language, right? I am a bilingual person. Is English a first language?
No.
Right. So we all have different mother tongues, and um, coming from a very culturally diverse country, we have more than 22 languages and more than 200 dialects. And so coming here, I thought my English was really good, and I feel like my English is good, but it's just that here the accent is different from our accent. So English is the official language of India. It's on the documents, it's on all the official papers, but it's not our national language, it's not our mother tongue, and it's not our first language. So when we come here, it's like a completely different world. And sometimes I feel like they're speaking English, something I know, but they're like so fast I can't catch up a single word. And then you start feeling, oh, I thought I knew English, and here you think that, oh, you don't even know English. And that these are like little things that just tries to break your confidence a little bit. But I guess once you you know start appreciating what you are doing as well. So if we take two perspective, okay, I might not be so good in English in Australia. That is because my accent is different, that is because I belong from a different country and I will learn it. And if we talk of another thing, like maybe I'm doing good work in mental health advocacy, that's like appreciating yourself and at the same time acknowledging your shortcomings so that you can work on it. But if you just keep saying yourself, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, then it just demotivates you and it breaks your self-esteem.
Indeed, I absolutely understand what you're meaning.
Hmm. Okay, so we want you to share about your research of indigenous art and culture in Australia.
That's right. So, indigenous countries around the whole world are such immense and rich sources of stories, of folk wisdom, of incredible heroes and their journeys. And it saddens me sometimes to see how these stories are not being used to their full capacity. And so I decided to focus my research to see how these stories and inspirations can be integrated into the mainstream media, into the
Hmm.
mainstream storytelling.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I decided to study such things as children books that you can find in all the mainstream shops,
Hmm.
or for example, TV shows that you can watch on ABC, or VR experiences, for example, that you can find in the big galleries. And all of this use of modern technology gives an unprecedented well of tools and means of how to communicate these stories to the world. And so I really believe that telling stories is the best way to relate all the people.
True.
It's the best way to share our common experience as human beings.
Yeah.
Because we all love, we all feel sadness sometimes, right? We all struggle, but then we succeed. And
Hmm.
so in these stories, that's exactly what validates our experiences. And
True.
so the more we share it, the more we validate ourselves and also validate people around us. Because, you know, maybe you had a bad day yesterday. You know
Hmm.
what? I also had a bad day yesterday. You know, you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
And
True.
so, s- researching this potential of storytelling and how a lot of like, how much power it has and how much difference it could make gives me a lot of hope.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm pursuing my research project.
That's amazing. And talking about indigenous culture
Hmm.
and even the cultural backgrounds that we are from, which is completely different. So when I came to Australia, and so India is a very culturally and culturally rich country. So it has a long history, a lot of cultures, and it's not just one culture, but there's a lot of diversity. So, a fun fact, every 200 kilometers, the language, the way people dress, the way people eat, everything changes. So, coming from that country to this country, I wanted to explore cultures because I've always loved talking to people and knowing their story and um, learning their culture and how their culture is different from ours, what are the similarities, and also like indulging into their culture to actually feel it. And when I came in here and I had a conversation with Australians, they were like, "Oh no, it's like a mixed culture country, and there's no specific culture." But when I went to the museums and also in the news channels, there was always something indigenous people. And whenever we started, like we did acknowledgement right now. So that was a relatively new concept for me, doing acknowledgements and learning about different lands and how these lands were stolen. So we also talk about Voroni's name that was stolen from the indigenous people, and we acknowledge that. But that does signifies that Australia has a culture, but it's just not so popular as other cultures. And I wanted to study about that. So I saw these beautiful paintings that the indigenous people have done, and they were so beautiful with different textures, different designs, and all over the museums, at the vintage shops, and at the souvenir shops. But I felt like this was something that I was never told, and it was so beautiful to see that culture, and also heartbreaking to listen to the story of whatever happened to the indigenous community in Australia. And that also depicts the indigenous communities all around the world, because a lot of times the culture is just, you know, depleting, and there's like one thing that rules over the world, and there's like one power that rules over the world, and people try to forget their own culture and move towards one normal thing that is, uniform system. What's your take on that?
That's right. Well, celebrating Indigenous cultures a it has been a long journey for Australia
Mm,
for many many different reasons, but it is honestly it's so empowering to see now that it has been acknowledged and celebrated to this degree. Even the change now is so profound and fast. Than when I just first started my bachelor degree back in
mm.
2014. This situation was completely different than it is now, and
Oh,
it's not even been 10 years. It's the pace at which the acknowledgement and the appreciation celebration comes is very fast, well, comparing to what it was in the past.
mm,
Maybe not fast enough in some ways, but we're getting there, and it's amazing. And as someone who also comes from indigenous culture myself, I understand that identity, just being able to hold on to your identity, means so much in the way
true.
how you perceive yourself and the way how much confidence you have in the face of the world. And
Mm,
so, um, coming from also a colonial sort
mm,
of a background, um, and being a minority within a very big nation,
true.
I understand how sometimes people can feel that their culture is not being appreciated in the ways how it deserves to be appreciated.
Yeah.
And so, right now, my people undergo this renaissance of culture. So, we really embrace it to so many
Mm.
levels. Um, we included it in our state official language. We have our TV being dubbed in two languages at the same time, in
Ah,
the official country-wide language and also in the local language. And so we are translating movies and
that's
TV shows
wonderful.
into the language. And this is just an incredible way to see how this sort of changes, what effect they give for the sense of confidence that you belong, that
Yeah,
you exist. And it's such a big feeling of acknowledgement.
yeah.
And so, and that's why it's also really important to understand that culture is everything people do. Culture
Mm.
is not only a painting or not only a
Yeah,
dance or a
true.
song. Culture is how you go about your life, it's how you express yourself, right? It's about what stories you tell and what values you communicate through this. And so, and that's why, sort of, in my research, I really want to advocate for the fact that media and media products
Mm.
have a profound cultural value and cultural effect on society. Because, well, you know, if I say, did you watch that TV show Friends? I mean,
Yeah.
the chances are you say, yep. And then you come from India, I come
Mm.
from Siberia, and we
Yeah.
both saw it. But it means we saw that story. We sort
Mm.
of we understood the values that the TV
Yeah.
show was communicating, and it's funny, but that was a story that we all heard.
Mm.
And so, if indigenous stories enter this sort of mainstream media and be communicated, and imagine how much creative potential these stories have.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
exactly, and so how much power it can bring. And this not a big maybe bashing political power, but this subtle, the more persuasive power of just shared humanity. And
Mm,
so that just really fascinates me on such a personal level. And so that's why I really kind of pursue that. That what yeah. That's why I pursue my PhD project.
that's beautiful. And there have been comments about you. Well done, Irene. So if you see over there.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you so much to everyone who has tuned in, and thank you for dropping so much love. So I want to ask you one question. So, what do you actually mean by being indigenous?
So being indigenous means it's a big thing to explain. It's a big concept, but what I use as a definition is that coming from a culture who has real cultural, lived, and spiritual connection to the land they descend from,
Hmm.
they come from, and they stay on this land, and uh, they exist within the context of their reality on that land. And then, so well, these days it's also quite accepted to say that these people also underwent a some sort of event when a dominating culture has imposed their political rule over.
Yeah.
And so that applies to my nation and to many nations from the
Yeah.
region I come from. So in Yakut people, my people, are not the only indigenous people of Siberia.
Mm.
Siberia is a vast, it's a huge piece of land. And if you Google it on a Google map, you'll see that this chunk of land is several times bigger than Australia.
Mm.
And within that land, we have hundreds of nations,
True.
just like in Australia.
Mm.
So we are related, but we're different.
Mm.
And we have different cultures and different spiritual beliefs. We have different languages and different views of life. And some people closer to the north, their day-to-day life remained mostly undisturbed,
Mm.
while the nations living closer to the south um, have adapted to a urban lifestyle. For example, me myself, I come
Mm.
from a city. So
Yeah.
I come from a city which is a capital of my state within
Yeah.
Russia, and so that is Yakutia. So we are a republic within Russia, and so we have enjoyed some level of sovereignty until recent years, and that small period of sort of sovereignty, it wasn't complete, but it was some sort of degree of sovereignty. It did wonders to our prospects of development. It gave us so much hope to the
Mm.
future. It gave us so much inspiration to stand up, build up, and to just own, you know, own it
Yeah.
of being who it is to be Yakut people.
Mm.
And so these sort of acknowledgments, they go a long way, especially for nations who have been minorities within the
Mm.
lands which were they historically, you know.
Right. Yeah. True. So, if I talk about indigenous culture and what you gave us as the definition, I can also relate it to so many levels. So, um, my culture is I'm like very strongly connected to where I come from, and I have no shame in representing my culture, my country, and whenever someone asks me, I'm a true Indian from heart, and no matter wherever we go, it's just like if you're strongly connected to your culture, no matter which place on the earth you are, you'll still be um, very much connected to your own culture rather than assimilating into someone else's culture. But enjoying someone else's culture is a good thing, but I feel like I just see myself into my culture, into the Indian culture. And when I came here, I was so astonished to see people actually loving, appreciating Indian culture. And so I live in a dorm in university, and I go to the kitchen and I can smell Indian spices. People are mad crazy about Indian food. There's like butter chicken cooking every single day in my Wombrun Hall's kitchen. And I was like, oh my God. And you won't believe me, there was this French guy who invited me, and he made a whole Indian cuisine from scratch.
Oh,
Yeah, and I was like, I think coming here, I'm so proud of my own culture. Everyone loves it so much. So I recently started working, and I work at a retail store. So my manager keeps telling me about stories from India. And she's like, am I right? I just studied this somewhere. Am I right? And that's so cute because I just keep talking about India, and I just can't get over. It's just because my family has been deeply rooted to the culture. And again, I'm not an atheist, I'm a very religious person. I belong from a very religious family. And no matter if it looks cool to be an atheist, what's my culture will remain my culture. How I've been brought up will remain the same. And so I go there, and um, I don't know how many people chant Hare Krishna. I went to ISKCON. I see people from all the nations chanting Hare Krishna. Even the priest was Australian. And he was telling his story about how he converted into a devotee of Krishna from being a person who was always under the influence of substance abuse. And that too, he was an Australian. And then there people talking about how they went to India, into a particular place, meditated for some time, and can never get over from what they experienced. And it's just so beautiful because people appreciate your culture, and it just makes me feel so proud of my nationality, of where I am from, and our community in itself. Um, so I remember one of my friends, she went to India this August, and she was stunned. She was like, I've never felt so much power um, in any place, because whenever you go to the temples, everyone starts dancing, and it's a beautiful rhythm. And it's just a collectivistic, so I belong from a collectivistic community. It's not an individualistic culture. It's like the community is together, it's not one person leading. And that's the beauty of our culture. I think individualistic communities have their own features, and they're good in their own ways. And um, they are suited into a variety of cultures. But for our culture, because it's such a diverse nation, that unity is like really, really important. And that's why, if it wasn't a collectivist community, I don't think that we could have made it into a so popular culture and tradition. Yeah.
that's right. I think what you're talking about now is the need of people to have confidence in their own culture within their
Yeah.
hearts, because it's sort of a standpoint of where you stand and how you look at the world.
Mm.
And if you have a place where you know that is my place to stand on within the field of cultures, right,
Yeah.
then you can have a very, very thorough appreciation for other cultures, because
True.
you have to have something in your heart in order to appreciate the similar thing in other people.
Yeah. True. When you came here, what did you find similar in your culture and the culture in Australia?
Hmm. Interesting question, because usually people would ask me what is different, and as someone who came from a very, very different part of the world, it was an easy question for me to say. I'd usually say everything was different. But if we're talking about what is
Similar.
similar, I'd say people are people everywhere.
Mm.
You know, at the very heart, at the very core, as I said, we are all people. We all want the best for people who we love and our families.
Mm.
We all work to achieve our goals. We all crave connections and friendship.
Yeah.
We all want to maintain loving communities and be part of communities, because being alone is very difficult.
Yeah.
And for international students, the sense of loneliness is a very acute feeling, which we will all understand, right?
Yeah.
Because especially in the very first years of you arriving, just this sense of not belonging, especially for people from communities like yours and mine,
Mm.
because usually indigenous people are also defined by the sort of a communal cultures, not very individualistic. That is difficult.
Yeah.
But it also gives us power and opportunity to stand up and actually explore ourselves. And I think this is one of the key experiences of being an international student in a
Yeah.
different country, that you have the opportunity and power to prove for yourself
Mm.
that you can build from scratch, that you can stand up and solve all the problems by yourself with no your parents around,
Yeah.
with no aunts and uncles trying to help. It's just you against the world. And then when you feel this power, you start to understand that it's not you against the world, it's you with the world.
Yeah.
And then when you really truly feel connected.
True. And that was a beautiful line she said, that you are with the world, and not the against the and not against the world. Um, the beauty of doing everything on your own is just like, you keep me stranded to any place and I'll figure my way out. And that's the most powerful thing I think I could ever achieve. So in the first episode, I said that living abroad was never a part of my plan, and I never wanted to study abroad. It was never something I aimed for. And we need to give a particular IELTS test to get into Australia. um, I just started doing it out of my curiosity because I was bored after my high school, and I fortunately got a very good score in that. And then I was like, maybe this is an option. And then I was like so unsure, and I randomly applied to ANU, like super random.
This is so funny because this goes completely against everything that I did to get here.
Yeah. And getting a scholarship from here as well, that was, again, I was like, everything was meant to for me, and Australia was calling me. I was meant to be here. And I feel like universe plans are so different from my plans, because I dreamt of going into the top college in India and to live a very convenient life. But I think universe wanted me to have an experience that I would never forget.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like this. You
Yeah.
were literally led by your hand to ANU.
Yeah, exactly. I never dreamt of coming abroad. I didn't know anything about Australia. I was like, okay, this is a country and a continent. That's the very basic GK fact that is learned in class 3. That's it. I didn't know anything about Australia. When I came here, I got to know, oh, we have a hole in the ozone layer right at the head of Australia. That was what I discovered after coming here. After coming here, I was like, oh yeah, I know there are kangaroos, but they're so common.
That's right.
I know that Australia is advanced, but there are rabbits on the road. I was like, huh?
So funny. But
Yeah.
I think this is very interesting because in my experience it was completely opposite.
Yeah.
Because I was raised with this ambition to go to a university in an English speaking country
Mm.
and to find my way abroad to get a degree, But I think my motivation there was always the ability to get a education, a
Mm.
degree, which will not tie me to anywhere, but actually open the doors for me to do what I want after.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, even for you, maybe you don't want to spend your whole life in Australia. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you have to,
Mm.
because with this degree from ANU, it would mean that you will be able to do what you want.
Yeah. True.
And so that's what education in one of the top rating universities in Australia gives us.
Yeah.
That's I feel this is a reason for many of us why we came here, is to have the doors open for us.
Yeah. And I feel like now, before I was like, when I came here and I found like everything is so stressful, and I've never said this on my podcast, but when I came here on my fourth day, I got a very bad skin allergy, and my whole skin was burning, and my skin started peeling down. It was the time, I just cannot explain. It still, makes me cry. And it was just all, I was hopeless because it was not going away. I went to the doctor several times. I've never been to the doctor so many times back home, and here I was going over and over again to the doctors. I spent it like almost $300 to $400 on my medicines in my initial times, like fourth day. And if you do the conversion, because $1 is like 55 Indian rupee, that was a huge sum of money that I was spending in the initial days. And for me at that time, uh, I just lost all the hope because it wasn't going. And the doctor said that you are allergic to the sun. And I was
Oh,
like, what do you mean? Like, I can't go out? And stuff like that. They couldn't detect that what I was allergic to. And I was just left on my own to detect what I was allergic to, left with the medicines, and was told to do everything on your own because the doctors were like, it's the same thing. No matter how many times you come, it just doesn't get better. And my skin started peeling. It became all white, my hands and everything. It was these, there were like small little dots on little,
mm.
blisters on my
Oh
hands, on my
no.
face. Everything was peeling. And I was just, I
Must have
wasn't
been
even,
terrible.
yeah, I wasn't even confident to like come out of my room to the university. I used to wear caps, and you know that was a very horrible experience for me. And just graduating from high school and coming to a new country without anyone and just experiencing this was terrible. But I guess um, I got this strength because I know that I have recovered that even after when doctors just said that, oh, we don't know what's happening. And they gave me a dermatologist recommendation and said, like, you have a 6 months waiting for that.
Oh.
And I can't wait for that period, and I can't go with this for so long because I've always been that person, and my parents have raised me that you don't have to fear anything or anyone, and you are capable of battling your own battles. So I feel like that was one of the turning points for me, wherein I discovered what was suiting me and what was something that was reacting to my skin. And now, while I'm here and I'm completely recovered, completely healed, and there's nothing like that to me, touch wood. So I feel that I did it. And if I would have been back home, I would have like been a huge mess telling my parents, do this, do that. But here I did it myself, bringing medicines, going to doctors, looking out for solutions on the internet, doing research by myself. And also my mom, who was always there on my phone and telling me, you do this, you do that. But to anyone, but I discovered that it was sunburns. And also so eating beef is like a sin in our culture. And I didn't know that Australian sausages have beef. So that was the red meat
Mm.
that caused me an allergy.
Oh no.
And I was allergic to the red meat. Um, and that was something that really affected me. And also the sun is super harsh, that costed me, and that caused me sunburns. But it was mostly red meat and sun that caused that particular thing. But now I know what does that, so I can be aware of how to protect myself from these things. But for me to get to the stage to be able to share and say that, it has taken a long way, and a lot of efforts and a lot of strength and a courage to do that. So it's been a beautiful roller coaster ride for me.
Indeed, indeed. I think, especially in the very beginning, health concerns. I remember when I first arrived here, I kept getting cold after flu, after another cold,
Yeah.
and I couldn't understand what's happening because my immune system was all right
Yeah.
before, and then suddenly I just kept getting sick all the time and
Mm.
feeling feverish for no reason. And it felt so scary because I didn't have my parents around as well.
Yeah.
And so, just like you, I also went to doctors,
Yeah.
and what they told me is that, well, you see, you come from a small place and then suddenly you're exposed to
Yeah.
people who come from all over the world. And so you are building up your immune system. So
Mm.
you just have to deal with it. And that was their best advice. So just like they sent me home to take some Panadol and drink plenty of water. And that felt terrible. But, I found strength to as well to
Mm.
take care of myself, to learn the ways how to manage myself without the help of millions of doctors,
Yeah.
without my parents around.
Mm.
And so that was really a character building experience.
Yeah. And there's someone who said, "Thanks for telling. When I will come in Australia, I will cover my body of sunscreen."
Good idea. Please
Yeah,
wear sunscreen
yeah. Please
wherever
wear
you go.
sunscreen. It's like super mandatory if you are coming to Australia, and learn from my experience. Wear loads of sunscreen, like literally every 2 hours.
Yes,
And
good advice.
yeah, and this country is also prone to skin cancer, and the highest rate of skin cancer is in Australia, according to researchers. So sunscreen mandatory. I
That's
can
right.
write it.
And it comes from the ozone hole that you've been telling us just recently
Yes,
about.
ozone.
So please sound
Yeah,
smart.
true. So we have had a wonderful conversation about ozone.
Sure.
Sorry, we have had a wonderful conversation about culture and us belonging from different countries and our experiences in Australia. How did you feel about today's conversation?
I think it's great. It's always good to talk about, what we share in common,
Mm,
especially international students, because very often us, we come here alone. We don't understand what's happening. We
yeah.
sit in our own rooms, in our accommodation, don't really relate to people, and we feel like we're completely alone
Mm,
and we are facing these issues just by ourselves. But actually, all we are going through these things and talking about it and recapping it and
yeah.
sharing it with other people, it has a huge therapeutic value.
True.
Honestly, just reach out to each other, say hi. Don't be afraid to build communities, because lots of us international students, we come here and we really want to make some friends. We're really happy to hang out, to experience this weird and beautiful land called
Yeah.
Australia. So say hi to each other, hang out,
Yeah.
learn more about culture.
And we are on the same boat. We're just sailing on the same boat, and all of us are having similar struggles, similar happiness. And I feel like most of the times we are just acknowledging what hardships we went through, but it's also the time to appreciate everything good that happens to us.
Yes.
So um, before we end, what is that something that you want to share that you really appreciate and you're grateful that thank God that it happened to me and I came to Australia, and Australia being the reason for that happiness?
Well, honestly, it's just finding who I am. It's really understanding what drives me, because just as you, I came here quite, young and inexperienced and just left my parents. And what would I know what I want for my whole life, right? And
Yeah.
so just going through it every day, meeting amazing, incredible people every day, learning about so many things, learning in classrooms, but also learning from my friends,
Mm.
also learning on the streets, and just, from everything has developed me as a person so much. It has opened my horizons to the whole
Yeah.
beautiful world, and I would not want to miss this for anything.
Mm, true. I feel like for me, I'm so glad that the universe pulled me here because I don't know, like if I would have been in India, I think I would have been living the same life that I thought I would. But what's the purpose of living the life that you imagine? How about living the life that universe want you to live? And that's a beautiful experience. Also, before we end, so you are also running, and you're running for anusa.
That's right, yes. So I am running for treasurer with the ticket together for Anusa.
Okay, what is something that you are looking forward to improve for anusa?
Well, as you know, there has been changes to the way which students represents ANUSA, and so now all postgraduates, coursework, and HDR students are now also included. As myself being a PhD student, I would really want to take this opportunity to join the ANUSA Executive Committee as the first ever postgraduate student and the only postgraduate student in the Executive Committee across other tickets to advocate for the needs of postgraduate students and to be a representative of my community and of so many people who share my journey towards getting a degree, but also being a junior academics, also trying to juggle, personal life, work life, As I said, we don't have holidays, we don't have semester breaks. It's all work. It's all grinding,
Oh
grinding
my
your
God.
research paper with no
True.
end. And we have very different experience on campus. We have very different way how we relate to people and who we hang out.
Mm.
And so because of that, lots of lots of unique challenges need to be represented and need to be addressed, and lots of aspects of our life also need to be advocated
Mm.
for. And so that's why I really want to take this opportunity to join ANUSA and to become the voice of postgraduate students. And if you want to learn more about my policy and specific projects I would like to pursue, please visit my Facebook page or visit our
Together with Anusa.
yes, together with ANUSA, exactly. So our webpage and Facebook page, and do have a read of my policy as well.
Awesome, wonderful. So, I want to add something to this. So, like coming from different backgrounds, it's sometimes difficult to indulge into university in a bigger level, right? And so, in my first year, I just saw an opportunity to be the vice president of International Students Department, which I am right now. So, for that, when I wanted to participate in that, uh, there were elections, and there were so many people who told me, no, you can't be a vice president in the first year itself. And that was so demotivating to me. And they were all like, no, you can't bring the change, you just entered university and everything. But I think to bring the change, you need a voice. Your age doesn't matter. You need to have a strong mindset and the will to bring the change. And you can bring the change. It doesn't matter how long have you been in ANU or something. It is about, you see that this is an issue, I want to work towards it, and a will to do that. So to everyone who just backs out because people tell them that you are not good enough, I just want to tell you that you are perfect the way you are, and you are equally capable of achieving anything that a person from the third year, fourth year, or even post grad is.
That's right. That was a beautiful message for the listeners.
Yeah,
So strive for the stars. Always strive for the stars,
true.
and success will follow.
Yeah. I'm also running for the College of Health and Medicine rep, and I want to introduce policies like practical exposure to psychology, because as international students we end up paying almost 50,000 a year as tuition fee. And um, what we expect is something that helps us to not only just do some research that is only on the papers, but beyond what is already in the classroom, like in the practical settings, and an ability to have an exposure of the real world, to have a look about how psychology or how health sciences are in reality. And that was something that I was looking forward to. There are a lot of policies that me and Sarah, which is also the president of Psychology Society in ANU, we are running together for ANUSA in 2024 ANUSA elections. So you can read out our manifestos and policies, and if you like them, we would love for you to drop a vote for us. And with this, last but not the least, how was your experience at Disha in Australia today?
Um, it was great. Thank you. I think you are raising really good topics for discussion. I think people need to share the experience. People need to hear about experience of other people.
Mm,
And so this really is a good way to build a community and to hear and be heard. So thank you for inviting me.
thank you so much. And a special thank to you again. I texted her like literally today.
A couple of hours ago.
Yeah, in the afternoon, that do you want to come, and I'd love for you to join. And she's like, and I'm so grateful you were down. And I was literally like, oh, that's my fault, I've texted her like so late. I was in my tutorial and flight mode. I exit my tutorial and I see her reply, and I'm like, yes. Yeah.
No
So,
worries. Thank you for inviting me. I was at work, but I finished at 5, so I had just enough time to walk over.
but thank you so much for coming. Um, Everyone who has viewed the podcast, thank you so much. Thank you for dropping so much love in the comments.
Thank you.
And So much love to you all. Thank you to everyone who is tuned live to the Shine Australia right now. With this, we are concluding our today's episode at the Shine Australia. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope to see you all next Monday at 6 p.m. only on Varoni Radio and live on Diva's Planet on YouTube. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. You can just put it down. All right. Thank you so much.
No worries. Is it all right?
Yes.
Nice.
And